Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for staying on till the end. I should say that Mark Artois and myself were asked to come up with some slides to stimulate a discussion on how we might move forward from the WildTech project and the conclusions to developing a Europe-wide surveillance system. And obviously behind this is the whole WildTech team that has really all come together to try and to get these findings in totality. So first of all, rather than jump straight into the conclusions, is to say that there is more to come. The WildTech project has not finished. It has an end of December deadline for the main parent project to finish, but we have a number of PhD students that will continue after into the new year. So, and different elements of the project. So the modelling work, the work that you heard earlier from Glenn, will continue through Laura Walton's PhD, which runs through. And that's going to move more into looking at how we find incursions of new infections as soon as possible, and to look at the sort of different surveillance strategies of how we might try and achieve that. The statistical analyses of the array data, obviously there's huge amounts of data produced by these arrays, and there's an awful lot of questions, an awful lot of things we want to look at within that data. And as you've heard already from Gustav, he will be looking at that data, looking into those numbers a bit more closely, and again that goes into the new year. And also even on the arrays, you've heard from Tim, he will continue on into the new year to find his rodent array work. And we're all looking forward to seeing his results. So just to go through the goals, the WildTech goals that we started out. In the main, WildTech was about developing new tools. We've done this in a number of ways. We've looked at the logistics of moving samples around, the logistics of creating a European system for wildlife disease surveillance. And so we had work packages looking at ways and developing SOPs and moving samples around Europe to get them to the right places at the right time in the right condition. Obviously, heard so much about the microarrays. The recent developments in multiplex technology continue apace, and all of the potential benefits they may offer in terms of wildlife disease surveillance. And also the modelling and how we do surveillance. As Glenn was saying earlier on, it's fairly amazing that the types of ecological factors that could affect surveillance have had sort of scant attention, and you find out how we can try and improve our understanding of the chances of finding disease and or getting accurate prevalence data through the modelling work. So from those developing new tools, which hopefully we've made some advances in each one of those, how do you get from that moving on into a Europe-wide surveillance system? So perhaps what we do is start from where we are now. This is a picture that Mark put up right at the start. So this is what we do at the moment. This is the level of coverage. It's representative of what's happening in those countries. Each one of these spots is an animal that's been sampled and tested under the current situation in each of those countries. So we have country-specific systems that created this data, but they vary. They vary quite a lot. So trying to get a European picture, we need to understand how they vary at the moment. So they vary in their effort. And often the sampling effort is fairly limited in some countries. They vary in the distribution of that effort. As you can see, different focal areas of work in some countries compared to the more even distribution of samples in others. We have variation in data recording, as Leslie was talking about. So that includes the sample background as well. And also in terms of the actual diagnostic tests used in each of the countries for each of the infections. So that's what's happening at the moment. And if we want to try and think about moving on to a Europe-wide system, perhaps first consider the coordination of that current effort. So this might be brought together in some way to provide a Europe-wide picture. For that, we do need common protocols, as everyone's been mentioning, SOPs. So at all levels, in terms of the animal sampling, in terms of the sampling strategies, and that could be informed by the modelling results to maximise the chances of getting what we need from that, the information we need from the data. Common protocols for data recording, including the baseline background information on the samples themselves. What types are we going to ask people to record gender and weight and everything? Do we need all of that to be put into those systems? It gets very complicated and it becomes quite an effort when you start to consider how much data we would ask for everyone to, as a solid baseline that we know everyone records at all times. And as Mark was pointing out, keep things as simple as possible is often the best approach. Diagnostic tools to agree which diagnostic tools are going to be used, to agree which diagnostics tools are used for which samples, which species, etc. And finally, just as important, the samples, the storage themselves, and the shelf life of those samples in relation to what you're looking for. Another way of looking at it as well is if we did this, we start to come together to do this, we could start producing joint dissemination outputs, updates at a European scale rather than just in a single country. Let's try and create a system where we can produce updates at a European level. So that's what we have now. Multiplex technology is not used systematically throughout Europe at the moment for wildlife disease surveillance. What are the opportunities that it offers? I mean, as we all started off at the beginning, it's not changed. There is the potential there for it to be part of a one-stop screening tool. You run the samples that are presented to the labs at the moment on a standard array to give us an overview of what's happening in that animal, and that might be used to target more detailed investigation. But they can be used in lots of other ways. They'll be probably used in many sort of scientific ecological studies, epidemiological studies, but they could be used in conjunction with others, like the syndromic surveillance that Mark was talking about. Maybe we could join that up so that if we have a syndromic surveillance across Europe, and then we pair that with syndromic arrays, and so we start to use the arrays a little bit more in a more focused way. And I know that there's a Nottingham array, for example, on abortogenic agents. So that might be some way to go to join these things together. But in using the multiplex technology, we have challenges for a Europe-wide surveillance system. First and foremost, to my mind, is what is the purpose? What's the primary purpose we're going to ask everyone to record all this consistent data for? What is the question? What's the main one? Are we looking to monitor endemic patterns across Europe? Are we trying to find incursions? What is the primary purpose if we're going to do this? And that basically comes down to what gets screened for what and using what. No matter what does happen, how we use the arrays or any other multiplex technology, what it does mean is there will be a step change in the amount of data that we're going to have to handle. And in a way, don't underestimate how much of an effort that is to deal with all of that data and all of that information. If we go for integrated processes, they need to be joined up. If you go for the syndromic surveillance in combination with the arrays, we need to make sure that the syndromic people inform the array people to make sure the samples get shipped to the right places at the right time, etc., etc. And finally, as well, this technology will continue to be refined and developed and redeveloped. And one of the key questions really is when do you adopt these innovations? When do you if we jumped off the fence now and we started to use arrays within the system and they continue to get developed and other systems come on board, then when do we, what is the strategy for adopting new innovations? So, that's really it from my side of things. So hopefully sort of start a discussion if anyone's got any ideas of what we've said and what's been done before. But it seems to me that, a Europe-wide wildlife disease system is possible. We do have the tools. They're not currently used in terms of the multiplex as much as they could be. And I think certainly in the room, from the APs and the partners and everything else that are interested in the WildTech project as a whole, that we do have the will, at least at the scientific level, to actually do this. Perhaps the question is how we manage to implement that. So thank you, and look forward to your questions.